Hello, everyone. A warm welcome to this talk series on celebrating leaders who care. My name is Shailja Sharma. I'm an industrial psychologist at EAP-India. It stands for Employee Assistance Program. We have our presence pan-India and globally. EAP-India provides services to employees and families to promote their mental health and well-being. Today, we have the privilege and the opportunity to have with us Ms. Aanya Wig. She is the co-founder and the managing director of the NPO Her Haq. She is also the mind behind the foundation Girl Uprise. A very warm welcome to you, Anya, and thank you so much to make time for us this afternoon.
Hi, thank you so much for having me here. It's super interesting to be a part of this interview series, and I can't wait for the conversation that follows.
Thank you so much, Anya, for doing this. So it's a lovely name, Anya. Would you want to share with us what it means?
This question is so rare because people have stopped asking meaning of names, and honestly, I also stopped caring after a while. And I think it was only in school where people would care. But it actually means inexhaustible and gracious and merciful. All the things I hope I am. But yes, that's what it means.
And do you also feel that it resonates with the kind of work that you are doing and also, the kind of energy that you have that is inexhaustible at this stage?
I mean, the reason I said I hope so is because I feel like I hope I have inexhaustible energy because I constantly see people around me who are so much more full of energy, so much more passionate than probably I am. And I think the goal is to be that full of energy and that full of vibrance. So, yes, maybe a little bit, but I feel like it's so subjective. So, I don't know.
All right, all right. So talking about your work, could you please also like tell us about the current work that you are doing in the startups that you are engaged in?
Okay, so I do a lot of things. I always feel like they're not enough, but I will take you through the things that I do. Uh, let's go back to college. So when I was in college, I started a project. It was called Aghas, and we were working with women who came from marginalized sections of society to help them become financially independent. And how we would do that is by teaching them the skills of sewing, stitching, so many other vocational skills, and using waste cloth material, these women would convert them into reusable products. So, like bags, pouches, etc. And all of those products we would sell, and the money that we would get would go, the entirety of that money would go to these women. So, that was one project that I started when I was in college, and I realized that I want to do more. And within the same year, I think it was towards the beginning or end of 2019, and I realized that, you know what, I want to create a platform where we can give access to networks, access to services, access to skills, and just a platform and a safe space to other women. Because I went to LSR and I was lucky enough to have those networks, have those resources, and that's how Girl Up Rise started. And today, after a few years, we've finally reached to a stage where we can move on from a chapter and get it registered as a non-profit, and it's called Her Haq now. And the aim is that we're trying to create an ideal world where no woman has to fight to make her voice heard. And how we plan to do that is by different pillars. Some of them are menstrual hygiene management and training, financial literacy, legal literacy, and hopefully social entrepreneurship again. And the last non-profit that I'm also working at the same time, it's called Circle In, and we're working towards women's economic empowerment in India, and it's funded by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So the aim is to hopefully increase the number of women in the labor force in India. And we want to work with the private sector, the government, startups, and so many other places to create policies and spaces not just for women to enter the workspace, but also go higher up in the ranks, make sure that they are have quality work. And yes, I think those are at least startup specific things that I'm doing at the moment.
All right, what was the name of the organization? I probably missed that.
Circle in.
Circle In. All
Yes.
right, great, great. So, what are your thoughts about women at workplace?
I have a lot of thoughts. But for starters, I feel like the world looks at women as the secondary sex, and I feel like that's a replicability that we see at the workplace as well. A lot of the times, be it in terms of policies, be it in terms of how workspaces work, from things like entry to the workspace, from job descriptions to seeing how a lot of times they are very gendered, using terms like overexcited or like extremely active, and there are a lot of words that job descriptions have which automatically segregate women from applying to them, or this um, this entire setup of expecting people to work for more than 12 hours a day or 7 days a week, right? We have this really toxic setup of I don't know, capitalists trying to decide how the workspace should be, and ignoring all the unpaid work that women do, right? And this is what I tell a lot of people, that I don't think there is any woman who's not working. They're just not paid for it. So anybody, and most of us who share a bigger burden of housework, domestic duties, care work at home, all of that is unpaid work, which men more often than not don't participate in. So the workspace for me actually also extends beyond just the physical office that you are, and things like safety, right? You have organizations that might pay you for working higher number of hours without realizing that women automatically are more disadvantaged because of things like safety or household responsibilities back at home. I do believe that it's slowly changing. We do see a lot of women CEOs today. We see so many women who are a part of the workspace, but the change is very minute. We see so many reports talking about how the percentage of C-suite women in India or globally is so low. The rank of India in terms of quality work is also very low, and there's just so much that comes with what does quality work even mean? Because for a gender definition, someone might just say, oh, quality work is that you're getting benefits or you're getting paid for the work that you're doing, you're getting validation for it. But for a woman, quality work will be so much more than just the work that you do in office. It's going to be related to safety, it's going to be related to resources, you stuff like crashes, daycare, so much more. So I feel like I have way too many thoughts about women at the workplace, which I don't want to gulp or like spit it all out. But I do believe that workplaces need to evolve, not just in terms of how they look at women, but also how they include women in this entire process of hustling and bustling.
All right, thank you, Anya. So, coming to the policy part that you spoke earlier, so there are policies that kind of safeguard women at workplace, but policy is just one aspect for women. But what do you think for policy to become practicable at workplace?
So, I feel like there's this huge gap between creation of policy on paper and the actual implementation. And like you said, we might have some great policies, but the implementation of those policies remains fairly weak. One of the things, and I think one of the caveats of that, is that policy on paper also excludes a lot of women. So you might have policy for women at the workplace, but there is a huge section of women who are actually working but are not included. Stuff like our domestic workers, they're not a part of the formal workforce, and so are so many other informal workers that are not even a part of these policies. Most policies don't even recognize them. So forget about safety, you don't even have social benefits that these women get access to, right? So I think one of the bigger, or like one of the most evident problems, is creation of policy in itself and how exclusive or inclusive it is. The second is, I feel like, mindset. What ends up happening is that when there are increasing policies to safeguard women at the workplace or make workplaces a quality workplace for them, people have this automatic thought in mind that we shouldn't hire women. We shouldn't take that pressure of hiring them. We'd rather focus on men so that we don't have to give them maternity leaves. We don't have to give this, that, so many other things. And what ends up happening is that your workforce becomes so restrictive, not in terms of just diversity, but also in outcome of and productivity. We see so many reports by ILO and so many other places which talks about the increasing productivity of women and how diversity is so important as a business case in today's time. And there's so much more to having a diverse workforce. So I think mindset is a bigger problem. And for things like posh and anti-sexual harassment, they need to be empowered to a level that they actually start reporting cases or start understanding the boundaries at the workplace. And there's so much that can happen, right? You can't just read out from a piece of policy and tell them, okay, you know what, this is a safe space and you can come and complain to us, till the time you actually make them feel safe. And this is not just restricted to, say, like offices or the corporate world, but educational institutions. And I think one last thing, because I'm going on and on, I feel like there is a huge gap in information awareness. So many people don't know about most of the policies that exist. And since we're on the topic of POSH, we know that so many girls or students in colleges don't even know there is a POSH law that exists. Or if they do know that it exists, they don't know that as interns or as people that might be doing freelance work are covered under that law. Or if they know they're covered, they don't know what to do after that. So at every step of the process there is so much gap of information that really needs to be covered, be it through advocacy, be it through workshops, be it through advertisement. It could be anything, but because so many gaps exist, there is such a big gap between policy on paper and policy in real life.
You're absolutely correct on this, Anya, that there's so much work that needs to be done in this domain, and it that doesn't end at paperwork itself. So, what is your message to the employers and to the leaders of future? Since we are talking about leaders who care, and you are one of them. So, what is your message to them?
um So, for starters, I would definitely say that people need to be mindful at every step of the process in terms of hiring, or be it in terms of promotions, or be it in terms of retention, especially in terms of hiring. There are tiny things that people can do, right? Have a more representative panel when you're going for these college placements, right? Make sure that there is diversity even in your panel, so that if I'm a woman and I'm seeing only men interviewing me, I don't even know if I'll ever reach that stage, or I don't know how comfortable I might feel. And that's number one, right? Things that I already mentioned, having gendered job descriptions, not using terms like he, or expecting things that not just for women might just be too much for any sort of gender to follow. I think after that, I would also recommend that skilling and access to skilling is a very important thing that employers and leaders of the future need to focus on. Since we've uh, evolved so much in terms of access to education, I think we need to now focus on access to different types of education for women, not just focusing on vocational skills, but also stuff like STEM, coding, so much more. And women are so much smarter, or at least, if not smarter, as smart as men, but they're just automatically reduced or excluded from the process because they're functioned by society, or they're told by society that this is not something girls are good at. Just like driving and math are things that are automatically, you see so many jokes, you see so many people telling you, oh, girls can't do this, so stuff like that. And I think the last thing would just be that I think pledges really help. So maybe for companies to pause and internally check what the diversity is like in their organizations, and making that pledge not just to tick something off their list, but to actually figure out a business case of how women at the workplace can actually help their businesses, their companies, their organizations grow, expand, and create more impact.
Lastly, I think I would like to end the interview by asking you that how we, being an employee-oriented sector, help you in your cause.
So, but tell me a little more by what you mean, like the places that I'm working out is.
Yes, like the areas that you are working on in creating bridges of gender gap and working towards women empowerment. So you can, how can we as being employee-oriented sector that we are working towards employee well-being and mental health help you in your cause?
So I feel like my cause is very simple, right? Creating a world where nobody has to fight to make their voice heard. And by nobody, I actually mean women. And we could do that by just listening, figuring out channels. And like you said, mental health of employees um, is ignored so much that people don't realize how that can be related to direct productivity of the work at the workplace, beyond the workplace. It might lead to higher attrition. So I feel like focusing on different aspects and not just things like the practical aspects, as people may call it, at the workplace, not just handing out devices to your employees, but also maybe handing out access to resources like counselors and services where they could actually talk about the stresses that they might be going through, figuring out how you could create a flexible working mechanism, especially for women who travel from further away places. And honestly, after COVID, we realized that work from home can happen. And I feel like it's only going to lead to higher productivity and more participation and increasing participation in the workforce. So, why not focus on arrangements like that? Why not make sure that safety is not just present at the workplace, but to the workplace and from the workplace as well? Figuring out safe transport, making sure that, if you have a night shift, you figure out a safe travel for the woman at the workplace or even men at the workplace, for everyone. If you have a posh committee or an ICC in place, ensuring the processes are transparent, people know about the process, maybe having regular trainings. And all of this has to be done not just at, the hiring level or at the white collar level, but definitely also at the C suite level or the cold collar level, as people may talk about. So I think the change also needs to come from the top more often than not. And as someone working in the employee sector, or especially as all of you working with employers, I think this is a push that we have to make sure workplaces are more inclusive and more diverse.
All right, Anna, thank you so much for all your wonderful insights. It was lovely having this conversation with you. I'm sure all the people who are watching would be elated to know your wonderful insights. Thank you for having this interview with us.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. And I think it was super helpful. I just hope that we can finally trigger some conversations and see some change.
Yes, hoping that too. Thank you.